Welcome to Erudite, a panel discussion on contemporary issues of higher education being organized by the AP State Council of Higher Education. Higher education is now changing in its usual form, reaffirming its needs for historic commitment. Now, what is the historic commitment of higher education? Commitment towards the society, commitment towards the community. One report, one international report, a Kellogg's report, which was given for the National Association of State Universities of America. Now, it says that this Kellogg's report says that the engagement of the higher educational institutions is very much necessary for the community development. Whatever the higher educational institutions are rolling out, be it the research, be it the scholars, be it the other type of productive work that is coming out of higher educational institutions, should necessarily be focusing on the community development. For this particular panel discussion, we have with us Dr. Rajesh Tandon. Dr. Rajesh Tandon is the founder president of Participatory Research in Asia. He is also the co-chair of the UNESCO chair in community based research and social responsibility in higher education since 2012. Dr. Tandon has served on numerous expert committees of Government of India, University Grants Commission, UN, Commonwealth and World Bank. And he is the recipient of the prestigious award in social justice in March 2007 by the Government of India. The University of Victoria, Canada honored Dr. P. Tandon the degree of Doctor of Law honoris causa in June 2008. And Dr. Tandon is the first Indian to be inducted to the International Adult and Continuing Education Hall of Fame. He is also the first Indian scholar to be inducted in Academy of Engagement Scholarship in 2009. Welcome Dr. Tandon, and we also have with us Professor Vinod Pavarala. Professor Vinod is Senior Professor of Communication and serves as the UNESCO Chair on Community Media at the University of Hyderabad. After obtaining a PhD degree in Sociology from the University of Pittsburgh, USA, he taught at Virginia Tech, Blacksburg, USA and at IIT Bombay before joining the University of Hyderabad. Professor Vinod has been actively involved in research, policy advocacy and capacity building in the field of community media, not only in India but also in entire South Asia and in East and West Africa and parts of Europe. And Professor Pavarala currently chairs both the NAAC Steering Committee as well as the NEP 2020 Implementation Committee of the University of Hyderabad. And the other co-panelist is a professor of English and the Vice-Chancellor of Vikrama Simhapuri University of Andhra Pradesh, Professor G.M. Sundaravalli. With 37 years of experience in teaching English in Sri Venkateswara University, Professor Sundaravalli focused on her main research on post-colonial literature, American literature, comparative literature, short stories, etc. And being a women administrator, she had also served on Sri Venkateswara University as its former rector for more than 2.5 years. And presently Professor G.M. Sundaravalli is spearheading the academic administration of the Vikrama Simhapuri University as its Honorable Vice-Chancellor. And I have with me Professor B. Sudheer Prem Kumar, a professor in Department of Mechanical Engineering, JNTU, Hyderabad, presently in the service of the AP State Government as the Secretary, AP State Council of Higher Education, Government of Andhra Pradesh. Professor Sudheer Prem Kumar has varied experience, right from being the vice principal of JNTUK Engineering College to its principal, head of the department, chairman board of studies, placement officer, and more the TechWhip coordinator. Under his leadership, both for TechWhip as well as RUSA, maybe the University of Hyderabad had got more of accolades. Presently, Professor Sudheer Prem Kumar is the Secretary, Andhra Pradesh State Council of Higher Education, Government of Andhra Pradesh. So, with this introduction of the four panelists, I am going into the main theme of this particular panel discussion, that is the community connect of higher educational institutions. And maybe for the benefit of the viewers, the government of Andhra Pradesh, I think, is the first state government which had incorporated community service project, a 2-month mandatory community service project in the revised choice based curriculum. Sporadically, maybe here and there are a few colleges, few higher educational institutions in Andhra Pradesh and elsewhere who take up community service or service learning as a part of their curriculum. But with the initiative of the AP State Council of Higher Education, now this community service project has been incorporated into both the professional curriculum as well as the non-professional curriculum being offered across all the higher educational institutions in the state of Andhra Pradesh. And not less than 2.5 lakh students are going to involve themselves in community service. Through this community engagement of all the higher educational institutions, maybe in coming years, the state of Andhra Pradesh will have the best connect between the community and the higher educational institutions. And also the government of Andhra Pradesh had established a board of community development through education. So, there is, the objective of this particular board for community development through education is to identify the felt needs of the citizens and to find out what and how these felt needs could be addressed. So, with this background, we go to Dr. Rajesh Tandon to give his remarks on how and what is the community connect of the higher educational institutions. Over to you, Dr. Rajesh Tandon.
Thank you very much, and thank you, fellow panelists. It's a great pleasure for me to be participating in this discussion. And I do want to congratulate you all, especially the Andhra Pradesh State Council on Higher Education, for taking these important initiatives that have just been outlined in what I call making higher education socially responsible. Mahatma Gandhi was once asked that should the country have universities? He said yes, provided they do not have boundary walls, but public support. The problem is that we have boundary walls around our higher education institutions, but very limited public support. And the reason it has become so over the last 4 or 5 decades is because the entire focus of higher education institutions has become a machine to produce trained manpower which competes only in the marketplace, and the quality and ranking of institutions is advertised on the basis of the placement salary slip. I am also a product of the same system. And I have seen many institutions in your state as well over the years. I want to tell you that in 2 months from now, UNESCO is organizing its 3rd Higher Education World Conference in Barcelona. It was supposed to be held last year, it has been postponed. And one of the fundamental purposes of this conference that UNESCO has described is to rebuild, reconnect, as you said, societal linkages of higher education institutions. Socially responsible higher education, and I have written many books on this, most recently, International Perspectives on Socially Responsible Higher Education. It is an open access. I will send you the link, download it, read it for free. It brings examples from around the world. Today, socially responsible higher education is not about NSS programs or adopting villages. What we teach, what we research, and what we provide service to all have to be viewed from the lens of social responsibility. What are the challenges? What are the sustainable development goals which need to be met in different localities and regions of Andhra Pradesh? Not in America or Africa, in your backyard. Those should be informing how teaching happens, how research is conducted, and how service is provided. So in teaching, since Andhra Pradesh is a pioneer in many engineering and management schools, which is also my professional educational background, let me give you an example in teaching. If you are teaching management, your management books contain theories and case studies based on large corporate firms. But we know during the pandemic and even before, a large number of small enterprises, informal enterprises, the woman on the street outside your office who is selling some food, she is also running a business. None of our management schools ask their students to go and study how she manages inventory, how she manages her cash flow, and how she handles the risk of being pushed around by local municipality. The day our management students learn this, they will become socially responsible in their outlook. The same applies to engineering. We are producing rocket science here, there, and everywhere, but we cannot help our plumbers who do not have a college degree to design a system where leakage from the tap does not happen in summer, because in summer the flow of water reduces. So our technologists are studying fancy technologies in laboratories which have no connection to the challenges around them. And that is why we worry that our students are not ready. We confuse it by industry ready. I call it societally ready. They are not ready to engage with society. So social responsibility of higher education is now part of the national education policy. I am a member of an expert group which has launched a document called Fostering Social Responsibility and Community Engagement in Higher Education. I am sure all of you have read that document. If not, please read it. It was up on UGC website till yesterday for comments. As a part of that, a 2-credit compulsory course is being designed for all students of UG and PG level around the country to be taught beginning July term. And a group of master teachers as trainers are being trained in 7 regional centers appointed by UGC, who will not only teach students but also train other teachers to teach. And this is not ghettoized or limited to faculty of social work. This is across all disciplines and across all courses. But why we are doing this? What is distinctive about it? These master trainers are going to learn community-based participatory research methodology, so that when they take students to the communities, to villages, to informal settlements, to peri-urban locations, they take them with a sense of learning and not with an arrogance of teaching. Much of our community connect historically, not only in India, but around the world, has been that college students think they know everything and they go and teach those who they think are illiterate, uneducated, and therefore ignorant. If we go to the community with the humility to learn, we have to accept the fact that knowledge does not reside only in the academia. Knowledge resides in communities, in everyday practice. And some of our daily wage laborers and some of our forest dwellers, if they did not produce, use, and access knowledge, they would have not survived. That knowledge is not recorded in books or even on a digital platform. You can't Google that reference because that knowledge is in everyday use. So, when we take the students to the communities, let us take them with a sense of humility and with an open mind that they may learn something from them. Of course, they can add their own knowledge to solve their problems. But don't take their problem statement defined from your theoretical framework or from your professor's favorite research topic. Go there with open eyes, open ears, open nose, open mouth. Touch, feel, listen, and then find out what they experience as a problem. And then find out how they are dealing with it, and therefore what else can be done to address those challenges. I want to tell you that this conversation you are organizing is very important, and you should have this conversation in local dialect and languages, because community engagement anywhere in this country will not happen in English language. Many of our college-going students sometimes have forgotten their own mother tongues. They may have studied in high school, but they forget how to read or write. And you cannot go ahead and do serious community engagement, which is mutually respectful, if you do not know how to use mother tongue. Because their knowledge, community's knowledge, the knowledge of the fisher folk on the vast coastline of Andhra Pradesh, the knowledge of rural populations in the Rayalaseema region of Andhra Pradesh, much of that I have traveled extensively. That knowledge is in their language, it is in their culture, it is in their rituals, it is in their everyday practice. And we must go there with open mind, attuning to that culture and that language, and listen to it. Listen to their proverbs, listen to their stories, music, dance, and see how that knowledge is being utilized and passed on to the next generation. Of course, that knowledge is not complete. Of course, that knowledge needs upgradation. Of course, that knowledge needs new ideas and new knowledge that we may be learning in higher education institutions. But please do not disrespect it. Please do not displace it. Build on it. And if you can do so, you will contribute to the socially responsible higher education that you are a part of. I would also like to emphasize that vast campuses of management and engineering colleges in your state, just as in other states, many a times are not designed consistent with the new challenges of climate impact we are all experiencing. And the technology of our construction of buildings, of labs, of our campuses is totally incongruent with the realities of climate change. And if we don't teach our young people who are going to become engineers, managers, doctors, scientists, professionals, bureaucrats, businessmen, if we don't teach them sensitivity about people's knowledge, respecting that, and how to build on it, and how to pay attention to the challenges of climate change, how to value local knowledge. If we don't teach them all this, we will not be able to reverse the pattern of serious impacts that our society is facing. And it is that orientation which will also help to create an opportunity for our young people who graduate from colleges and universities to become not just socially responsible, but also relevant to society. If you are relevant to society, your value is not counted in your monthly salary check. It is counted in the eyes and dreams of your fellow community members. So I am very grateful to you for organizing this conversation. I will send you some of the materials. Next time I happen to travel to your part of the country, I'll come and see you all, and I want to read and learn about the experiences of service learning, but please design them so that there is learning not only for the community, but also for the students in a mutually interactive manner. And
Surely,
make sure
surely,
that
Dr.
even
Rajesh.
the Vice-Chancellor of English language designs it in a service language. Every theme that you teach can be carried forward in teaching and research in a socially responsible manner. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yes, Dr. Rajesh Tandon. I'll come back to you again. It's not that I'm going to leave you with your inputs. As you said, now the educational institutions have become silos, silos of their own world, silos of their own knowledge. And also you have really put it in right spirit that focus should be on not on the industry readiness, but the social relevance of the student when he goes out of the portals of the institution. And rightly you have also struck the note on knowledge is lying with the societies, and maybe with an open mind, if a student goes to the society, maybe his knowledge will be improved by taking that, imbibing that knowledge that is pre-existing in the society. I will come back to you, Dr. Rajesh Tandon. Thank you very much. Now, over to you, Professor Vinod Pavarala. May I have your initial comments on the community connect of higher educational institutions?
Thank you. Am I audible?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. It's always a pleasure to listen to Dr. Rajesh Tandon, and it's often a challenge to follow him to talk about this particular subject on which he has done much work on social responsibility and community engagement. However, I have a few things that I would like to share and perhaps reinforce some things that Dr. Tandon has already mentioned. Let me join him in commending the Andhra Pradesh State Council of Higher Education in taking this initiative. I appreciate the project of incorporating community service, community development in higher education in Andhra Pradesh. I hope this idea is taken up by many other states in higher education. I think in one of your documents that you had shared as part of the invitation for this event, you had mentioned, you had made reference to Unnat Bharat Abhiyan. So one has, of course, looked at that document that talks about rural transformation, the need to have more young people involved in rural transformation and so on. So one has looked at that document. The document that Dr. Tandon has mentioned is also a very important document, called Fostering Social Responsibility and Community Engagement in Higher Education Institutions in India, which is about 2 years old now, and looks like many of those ideas in that document are now getting into have already got into the NEP 2020 document. As mentioned in the brief introduction to me, I've been looking at implementing NEP 2020 at University of Hyderabad for the last 1 year as the chair of a committee appointed by the Vice-Chancellor. So one has been studying NEP quite thoroughly, looking at other associated documents to see what we can learn. On the issue of community engagement, when one looks at the NEP 2020 document, NEP refers to community engagement, it refers to community service, it also refers to community outreach. In fact, if you do a search of the document for community, you will see that there are about 40 references to community in the NEP document. So looks like the issue of community and engaging with community is quite central to NEP. And of course, the challenge to APSCHE, to the Vice-Chancellor, Professor Sundaravalli, and many other academic leadership is to see how do we operationalize some of these ideas in our own institutions, right? A couple of thoughts I have. When you talk about community engagement, also when you look at Unnat Bharat Abhiyan or other community engagement documents, the emphasis always seems to be on the rural. Yeah, with the assumption that students at higher education institutions are mostly urban-oriented students, urban-based students, and they need to reconnect with in India's villages and so on. I mean, something which is a very sort of a Gandhian ideal. I would like to suggest that the community connect that APCHE is talking about need not be limited to engagement with only rural communities. There are urban communities who are suffering from all kinds of social injustices, economic and social inequalities, with whom our students and campuses can productively engage, depending on where you are located, right? I mean, of course, if you are located in peri-urban areas, semi-rural areas, engaging with rural and rural communities makes a lot more sense. But if you are an urban community, I tell my students to just look around you. I mean, you don't need to go with a torchlight searching for communities in villages. I mean, there are migrant workers, there are construction labor, there are domestic workers, and so on and so forth. I mean, urban communities are also equally important for higher education institutions to engage with. The second issue I want to flag, when we encourage our students to involve in community engagement and to do community service, and there are a lot of new catch-all phrases that are coming into India. I mean, they have been popular in the West for a long time. I mean, this idea of service learning, for example, right? A lot of international students who come to India want to do service learning. But that phrase is now catching up among Indian institutions as well. But I would like our students, Indian students in higher education institutions, to shed the colonial mindset of engaging with communities for quote unquote improvement and upliftment. This rhetoric of wanting to improve and uplift, these poor rural communities kind of attitude, reproduces a colonial mindset of, hapless, poor communities which need to be uplifted by more enlightened, civilizationally superior white people, and now, of course, urban literate people like us. We need to, get away from that mindset. Approach community service, community development, as Dr. Tandon pointed out, in the spirit of mutual learning. Right? Let me give you a quick example. When I take my social change communication class to some of the villages that I work in Telangana, not too far from Hyderabad. For example, I have my students walk through this small 2-acre farm of a 70-year-old farmer, Chandrama. And I ask my students, and pointing to the plants and the crops that we see through the 2 acres, and ask them to name them and ask them to identify what we are looking at, what crops they are, what uses can the plants be put to, and so on. And of course, with the urban biases of our students, their own social backgrounds are such that they are quite ignorant of what they are walking through. On the way back, I asked this 70-year-old non-literate farmer, Chandrama, to start educating them. To point to the plants and crops and tell them what they are looking at. And it's amazing. I mean, she's pointing to a 2-acre land of rich agricultural biodiverse farm, naming the plants, talking about what kind of soil is useful for it, what kind of climate is good for it, what health benefits can you get from this crop, how you can put something else to use in your house, and so on. So she's an agronomist, a climate expert, a soil expert, and so on. Now, to recognize Chandrama like that requires a certain kind of attitude among our students, that we have something to learn from the communities with whom we would like to work. So that attitude is something that's very important to foster in our students. Dr. Tandon mentioned this 2-credit course on community engagement, which is, I think, an important recommendation, an important initiative. However, the spirit of community engagement and community service cannot be fostered in our students just through that 2-credit community engagement course. This is something that needs to percolate through everything we teach our students, no matter whether it's technical courses, courses on agriculture, social sciences, humanities. We need to figure out ways of engaging our students through our curriculum to think of social responsibility, to think of communities, right? So respecting people's ideas, their knowledge systems requires that we shape our students as co-learners, that their community engagement is a collaboration in acquisition of knowledge, in acquisition of skills. They may be urban, they might be literate, but they don't know everything. And the rural communities or the urban poor also don't know everything. If our students can engage with communities in the spirit of learning from communities what they know from their knowledge, and to share what they have learned in institutions, in the books, and so on. Secondly, we need to incorporate a value for people's participation in development. The APSCHE has mentioned this Board of Community Development through Education, which again, probably a pioneering initiative in the country. But I would like to urge that, ultimately, well-meaning people cannot parachute into communities and develop them. The people ought to develop themselves, right? And how do we incorporate that attitude and the tools and techniques necessary to involve communities to participate in their own development? So this requires some skills. It also requires a set of communication skills, because I'm in communication. People across disciplines often call me to say, can you teach them soft skills? I think this is beyond soft skills. The kind of communication our students need in the field are not just to do with how to speak, but how to listen. Often community engagement is about keeping your ears open and learning from communities, and to be able to listen to good ideas coming from there. How to observe, how to co-develop ideas with communities, and interpersonal skills, building trust, learning to work in teams, building consensus. Community development is not about going into communities and spreading our gyan, which I'm sure, students of ours would have something to share, but not with an attitude of dispensing people's ignorance, but it should be with a spirit of mutual learning. Community engagement curricula, therefore, need to be people-centric, it need to be location-specific, contextual. Very often, one shoe doesn't fit all. Yeah, you need to foster this idea that one needs to learn from location. What works in coastal Andhra will not work in dryland agriculture areas of Telangana. Yeah, so one needs to learn from different kinds of agriculture, different kinds of culture, build on local knowledge, focus on building self-reliance of communities, not to develop a perennial dependence of communities on outsiders' support and help. So this idea of empowerment, self-reliance is very central. And this is not something new. I mean, Dr. Tandon rightly invoked Mahatma Gandhi. I mean, it goes back to that period. Yeah? Dr. Tandon is also heads an organization that's a pioneer in participatory research. Again, in our research methodology curricula, it is so important to incorporate participatory research methods and techniques. And this is not just for research. Participatory techniques are very useful to do community engagement work. Yeah. So both for research as well as social action at the grassroots, one can benefit a lot from participatory research tools and techniques. So kindly open up your research methods courses to see how you can incorporate these ideas. So what are we looking at the end? To produce students who are socially committed, who are culturally sensitive, who are empathetic in their interactions with other people, especially with the poor, with the non-literate, with the disenfranchised. Learn to be empathetic to them. Be democratic in communication, not hierarchical, and be trained in participatory tools and techniques, of which Dr. Tandon has written much. PRIA has done a lot of work. Much of it is available online for APSCHE and others to download and look at them. And I'll be happy as we move forward as part of our UNESCO chair to participate in any kind of curriculum building or ways of incorporating some of these ideas in the Andhra Pradesh State Council of Higher Education's initiatives for community engagement. I'm sorry if I've overshot my time, but let me stop here and over to the Vice-Chancellor and others. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Vinod. Maybe you have dispelled the myths that community development means maybe something rural development. Now, I fully agree with you that there are certain urban areas where there are certain specific problems also to be addressed. And more than addressing a problem that is existing in the community, as per your insights, it is a mutual learning. Maybe the students who visit the community need to learn from the community. In fact, Professor Rajesh Tandon also was of the same opinion that it should be a mutual learning between the community and the student community. So, I will again come back to you, Professor Vinod. Now over to Professor B. Sudheer Prem Kumar, the Secretary of AP State Council of Higher Education. Let us listen to Professor Sudheer Kumar about his insights on the community connect of higher educational institutions. Over to you, sir.
Yeah. Good evening, everyone. On behalf of AP State Council of Higher Education, I extend my hearty invitation to all the experts who are taking part in this online Zoom meeting, particularly on the Erudite program. So, regarding the linkage between the higher educational institutions and also the community, AP State Council of Higher Education initially we have taken initiation of revising the curriculum, both maybe for engineering students and also for non-engineering students. And of course, fortunately, I was the convener for the curriculum revision of engineering students, along with other experts like Professor N.V. Raman Rao, who is the director of NIT Warangal, and some other people. So, our say maybe keeping in view of CBCS and NEP 2020, we have revised the engineering curriculum, taking into account of introducing this say maybe internship, maybe for community internship or taking part of community development program by the students. Of course, our intention is not only to limit them only for 2 months, but also this is as an initiation initially for 2 months, and that can be extended to their main project or main internship also. Actually, it is going to be designed for 10 months internship for engineering students, 2 months for community development or community internship, and 2 months for other internship, and finally 6 months. Industrial internship is for 2 months, and finally 6 months their project work or maybe whatever their thesis work, what they are going to plan in the final semester. They can have one internship, and total together it will be for 10 months internship. And in this say maybe community internship, what our say basic intention is to involve the students or to take the research that is going on in the higher educational institutions straight into the application part. Whatever the research that is going on, that should be there linked with the maybe community or maybe whatever may be the say rural development that is going to be happening, that should be linked together, so that say fruits will reach in both ways. That means students not only from urban area, there will be some rural area students also will be there, and practically they have to enter into the community and they have to see the problem and they have to analyze what exactly they are studying in the maybe classroom say complex, and the same thing they can correlate, and that problem can be analyzed and viewed say practically in a understanding mode. So, I want to thank Professor Tandon Garu and Dr. Vinod Garu for valuable inputs what they have given, and I am sure we are going to make use of village volunteer system in Andhra Pradesh, which has been introduced by the government of Andhra Pradesh, and we want to correlate or maybe link the village volunteers with the students, and say practically they can enter into the collaboration of say village volunteers and also the students, and they can make almost a clear study of what is happening in the say community. Say particularly for example, you take the students of civil engineering students, they can come to the community or say rural area where how the irrigation projects are going to be happening, and how the drinking water facilities are available, and how the water treatment is taking place. All these problems straight away they can say relook into the practical examples that are available in the community, and they can correlate with what exactly they are studying in the classroom. So, that is the intention of our say maybe higher educational say council's intention, so that students will have maybe looking into the problems practically and identifying them, and say what are the practical issues that they can solve, and what say exactly they can say take it to the say notice of their professors or whatever may be the subjects they are learning in the class, and so that they can identify what are the immediate solutions. Like this, we have planned so many other say maybe community identity say areas, maybe that is available in our APSCHE website, where students can look into, and they can identify number of problems that are available in the community, so that whichever is going to be relevant or whichever they feel that they can focus on that particular problem in the community, they can identify that, they can take into, and they can, with the help of village volunteers, for 2 months they can look into all the practical problems and they can submit that as a report to the maybe institution where they are going to study. After that, if necessary, maybe related to that only they can take in a say industrial project or maybe their main project, or they can say make some of the say findings in their say main project also. So, like this we are going to have another say body which has been introduced by the government of Andhra Pradesh, that is nothing but Board of Community Development through Education. Of course, fortunately I am the secretary in charge for that also, and say we are going to have number of say plans like that, and as a part of that only we have introduced this Erudite say program in order to take the opinions of experts like Professor Tandon and Professor Vinod, who are having international exposure, and with your vast experience we want to take all the inputs from you people like this, and then we want to modify what are the things that we can do in the days to come. So, with this introduction, I want to thank even all the 3 panel exam say experts for your active participation and valuable input, sir. Thank you one and all.
Thank you, sir, for clearly bringing out the intentions of the AP State Council of Higher Education in linking the industrial experience, the internships, the technicalities with the community development, so as to promote holistic development among the students, and also maybe your linkage of the Board of Community Development through education will realize its fruits maybe in the coming years. Now over to Professor G.M. Sundaravalli, the Honorable Vice-Chancellor of Vikrama Simhapuri University. Ma'am, over to you, ma'am.
Thank you very much, Professor Sudheer Prem Kumar, for giving a sort of an orientation for what is happening in the higher education system in Andhra Pradesh. And I was listening to Professor Rajesh Tandon and Vinod Pavarala. They were the experts really who have done a lot of research in fostering social responsibility and also community engagement and things. And they have done a lot of work in that field. And I'm sitting over here. I am in the mainstream, and I can only talk about how to link up this social responsibility with the higher education system, and how to link up this community engagement with the higher education system, just like the APSCHE which is doing it. Bringing up a new curriculum, bringing up a sort of change in the curriculum, and how it can connect with the community as such and the academics as such. So I was asked to speak on how the higher education can help in eradicating or curbing the poverty or the social evils which are prevailing over here. So let me say the theme here today for discussion is very challenging, and so the higher education initiation is so good because we get so many inputs to bring about changes. So talking about the implementation of many, the government is giving many incentives in the higher education system for encouraging the youth to join the higher education, go for undergraduate programs and the postgraduate programs, and also to do some research in the universities. So I'll just stick to whatever I am actually dealing with in everyday life as such, because I am in the university system. So of course, when we are talking about the higher education system in Andhra Pradesh, most of the higher education institutions are predominantly, and they are established in a rural environment where substantial population consists of tribals and villagers, and the people who most of them are, we will be surprised to know that they are first generation learners also. So when they are compared to the urban learners or urban youth, the Indian youth, we can say that there are privileged section of them, and there is where they doesn't even know what is happening in the other side of the world. But when I was listening to Professor Vinod, he made a mention that even their students, they are motivated to go and search in their own community. So the urban people, urban youth also have an access to a community which really has a need for them to come and help them, to come and motivate them and know about some kind of sensitization from their side also. So there is a wide gap between the rural youth and the urban youth. Maybe the urban youth and the rural youth, when they come there to study, most of them are first generation students. When they come to do the post graduation courses also, when I will be, most of the times I'm really surprised to know when I ask them what after the course, what are you going to do for your community? Have you anything to do or contribute something for your community? So they have a blank face as such, and some of them they don't have an answer. So that's maybe we don't know that there are no passionate teachers who really have to inculcate that kind of a mindset in them, to encourage them to maybe that kind of as Professor Vinod has said, that they don't have that kind of interpersonal communication skills as such, and we don't know, but that's how they end up doing nothing for their community. They study, but it is their duty to go and do something, give something to their community. Either in most of the tribal areas and the village areas, we still have whatever social evils we talk about. The child labor is still there, and then there is child marriages are still there, and there is poverty which is still there, and many others. Abuse is still there, alcoholism is still there. So all these things maybe they have to be addressed by the youth who have really come to the higher education system, and they don't connect these academics with the community as such. In a way they have to do it. NSS units, they are maybe the standalone units, NSS units in every college and on every university. They really go, they enroll the students who are interested to do these community programs, and the social work departments in our universities, they also engaged, the students to volunteer to serve the society. They raise to every occasion which is happening in and around the communities, the calamities. When there is a calamity, they raise to the occasion. They do help the community in whatever way which is possible. But the NSS units, they have very few people who really go into the field and work. So when this kind of communities to be engaged with the academics was introduced by the UGC and in 2018, and it has said that fostering social responsibility and community engagement in higher education in India. Still, we are still debating as to how we have to go about and how to move about and how to make it as just like it has been made mandatory. And thanks to our government, which is taking good initiatives to bringing about this kind of a connectivity between the two, maybe by introducing the internships and making everything mandatory in the syllabus and in the curriculum. So when we come to the research as such, so I'm really happy to share something which is happening in our university. This university has been started in 2008. It is in a village called Kakaturu, which is very near to Nellore. So when it has been started in 2018 by then Chief Minister Y.S. Rajshekar Reddy, he had a vision that all the courses which are started here will be connected to the community here in Nellore, in and around Nellore. Especially, we find courses like marine biology, microbiology, biotechnology, all science courses which are being started over here. They do very useful research which is useful to the community over here. Especially, I have to mention about the marine biology. The research they do, and you must be knowing that Nellore is called as a shrimp bowl of India. So whatever they do, whatever research they do, they have even they have published papers also in their own research, and they have really communicated. They went and communicated and tested with the fishermen community. They tested the whatever products they have made, and they implemented whatever research they have done, and so in that way they help the fishermen community as such, because to enhance their product, and also to bring about some change in them, to go for new techniques and new developments in the field of research. And in other fields also, they have many other research programs have been done in chemistry department also in this university, because it is surrounded by industries. They have brought about some kind of using adsorbents to clean up the whatever the industry waste is going around the Nellore district. So this is how they have really went around, met the people who are suffering because of industrialization, because of many other things. They have motivated them, and the students also have been motivated. They have there is a sort of a community sensitization given, and they were introduced to the social issues which were happening in and around this particular place, especially this particular place. And they in turn brought about some kind of awareness programs to help the community around here. So the students maybe they're not maybe done in a systematic and a very productive way. Maybe a more systematic way have to be evolved by bringing about some kind of orientation programs to be given on under TOT program or something of that sort, to maybe from the book view make them narrow down that and make them go to the field view and look at things in a more comprehensive way. So that's how that they can be the village system. Now they have in Andhra Pradesh we have village volunteers. Maybe the students can go mix up with these village volunteers also, and bring the awareness in the villages that they have law which can help them. They have certain health programs which can help them. They have so many incentives which they can get, especially the social evil like child labor. So in those things they can definitely go and mix up with those people and do that. So in this maybe I don't want to, maybe I'm crossing my limits in speaking. I'm very sorry if I'm crossing the time limit which I have been given. Anyway, there's really this kind of discussions and panel discussions and question answer sessions may help to improve the higher education system to connect with the community as such. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you, ma'am, for bringing out how the academia should connect with the community. Maybe a institution of a higher learning like a university, like how it has to reach to the local needs through their research findings is very heartening to listen to that, ma'am. Sir, Dr. Rajesh Tandon, you have heard from me, from my Secretary of State Council, and also from Professor Sundaravalli, that the AP state government has rolled out the community service project, wherein for 2 months the students have to go to the community and do a particular project, either finding out what are the real needs of the community, and if possible to give them certain of their own knowledge what they have acquired within the 4 walls of the classroom. Now, this is the entire 2 months of project what they have to do in the community. Now, my question is, what could be the envisaged challenges for the higher educational institutions to send their students to the community to do this 2 months of community service project? Challenges of the institution, challenges of the community, challenges of the students also. Maybe could you just give your thoughts on this question?
Thank you very much, and thank you Vinod ji and Vice-Chancellor ji and Secretary Saab, Sudheer ji. Very, very useful observations. I want to, unfortunately, I was told the session would end at 4:10. I will make my comments, and then if you would permit me, I'll excuse myself. I have another engagement at 4:30. Uh, First of all, I have mentioned this to Vinod that the latest draft of Fostering Social Responsibility, not the earlier version of 2019, has included urban informal settlements, urban poor and peri-urban locations. So there is support for that idea, and this has been informed by what we observed happening to migrant workers in cities around the country during the pandemic. So this is number one. Number two, a very important point has been made that the practical difficulties for higher education institutions will come if you have to figure out where to send your students. For 2-month internship that your new policy suggests, which is very exciting, very important, each higher education institution will have to build trusting and long-term partnerships. Partnerships with local institutions. Let me give you examples. Panchayats, municipalities. Partnerships with local community-based organizations, SLGs, women's groups, youth groups. Partnerships with local NGOs, a wide variety of them. Why? Because students are a transient population. They will go for 2 months and then they will disappear. That's the nature of studentship. What will remain? In 2 months, if a student goes to a new community, even if it is in his own RWA neighborhood, upper middle class colony where his parents live, for 2 months he will not be able to collect any data because people will say, why are you here? We don't need you, go away. And don't forget that many communities surrounding academic institutions, not only in AP but around the country, have been suffering from occasional visits of students coming for academic tourism. Let me use my words harshly. So don't go there and say, I'm an NSS volunteer, I'll come and clean your tray. You want to work with them in a respectful manner, you will need to build relationships of mutual trust. And it cannot be done by a student in 2 months. You must give him some skills, give her some skills, as Professor Vinod was highlighting. Those are very important skills. But you need supportive mechanism as intermediation between communities. Otherwise, in the olden days, Professor Sudheer may remember when we went to the field to do field work for our PhDs, we ended up talking either to the teacher or to the zamindar and never reached the poor, because in 3 months of field work, that's all you can do. So let us create, this is where efforts should be made by academic institutions to build bridges and partnerships. And they should be such that students can also feel a degree of comfort. They can move and go around. I did my field work in Kherwada block of Udaipur district of Southern Rajasthan in 1977. A field work on organization and management study of farmers functional literacy program, part of IRDP in those days. But I could not have gone there without the support of Seva Mandir, an NGO which was working in that area. I did not stay in a hotel, I stayed in their half-built rural office and using no toilet was available. But I learned a lot. But I was introduced to the community as part of them. That helped my learning process and my engagement. Last weekend, I visited and did my pilgrimage 45 years later. And I was delighted to meet 2 elderly persons who were part of the study at that time. But without Seva Mandir, I could not have done so. So I would encourage all higher education institutions to build this partnership with some, you can even do so with municipalities, with various kinds of institutions which have location in the community. And contextualizing your work will be a very important part. Final point is motivate, inspire, and build capacity of your teachers. If teachers are not inclined, this will not happen. It requires both competence and commitment. And training can only do some competence building. Commitment has to be inspired by Professor Sudheer Kumar himself. Thank you very much. As I mentioned, I am happy to come and visit you and spend some time along with Vinod and Madam and others and support you, because in my view, this is a wonderful statewide initiative, unique. Other states can learn from you. Not only other states, other countries can learn from you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir, for your valuable inputs.
Thank you, Professor Rajesh Tandon. Over to, I'll be summing up the entire thing at the end. Now, over to Professor Vinod Pavarala. Professor Vinod, what are the different activities that the higher educational institutions should focus while sending their students for this community service project?
Yeah, let me, before that, quickly tell you what we are trying to do in terms of community engagement in our own NEP implementation at University of Hyderabad. As you know, the NEP document talks about internship, almost like a mandatory thing for all students. So when we went around, many departments, some of the departments as well as students told us, no, internships are very difficult in our field. How do we find internships for so many students? Please don't make it mandatory and so on. So when we came back to the drawing board, one of the things we decided to do is build in community engagement for about the same time. The 6 to 8 weeks period of internship. Parallelly, we said, if you are unable to get an internship with an external organization, you can do the same, you can spend the same amount of time doing some kind of structured community engagement and earn your credits. Yeah, so we try to build in some alternatives for students. So that's one possible way. Now, what kind of activities? See, it depends on whether they are going into the field as part of this community engagement course, or students doing whatever they are doing, whether they are engineering students or agriculture students or social work students, as part of their course, they could be going and doing some community engagement. I think it makes a lot more sense to build community engagement into their respective subject curricula. I mean, they can make a connection much better, than if it is a standalone community engagement course. Then you start wondering, what will I communicate about? What will my engagement be about? Yeah. Now, if they are education students, it's possible to work for the education students with the local primary schools, with the adult education groups in the village, and try and build some, understanding of literacy and education. If they are students of social sciences, could they work on issues of gender empowerment? Could they look at the work of SHEs and look at how women going out of their homes and participating in the life of the village would ultimately benefit the family and thereby the community and the village. Right? So I'm suggesting that we link community engagement work with what the students are doing. This could be extracurricular, but link it to their curriculum closely. So I think you need to work closely with their respective departments and come up with a set of activities that each department can think of for their own students rather than think of one sort of global set of activities that everybody can do. For example, Professor Sundaravalli's English students probably will not be interested or cannot do certain kind of activities that my engineering students can do. Yeah, I mean, so one needs to calibrate it according to the curriculum also.
Yes, sir. Sir, Professor Sudheer Prem Kumar, in your initial remarks, you are mentioning about the village volunteers, ward secretariats, and could you just throw little more light on this particular collaboration with the governmental agencies in making the community service project maybe a more meaningful one?
Yeah, actually, regarding the village volunteers and gram volunteers, government has maybe allotted for each volunteer like 50 houses. So certainly they will have a clear understanding of what the problems they are facing or they are observing by the people in that 50 say houses, like that. And when students of say community, say maybe projects, if they can approach the village volunteers, and if the students can tell them the background of them, that means they are like Vice-Chancellor Madam was telling, like her literature students also can have some practical say issues like dowry system or maybe child say marriage and so many other things. And similarly, like engineering students, what are the practical problems they want to study or they want to throw light. So straight away they can discuss and they will tell you where that particular provision is available. Maybe in that particular village where that say particular issue can be resolved or maybe can have say throw the light on it. So they will tell you the vicinity where the situation is say it is located, so that they can say have the interaction, they can go into the problem, they can study that and they can prepare the report. That's what we can expect.
Okay, sir.
Can I
Thanks.
just
Yes,
add
yes,
something
yes,
to what
Professor
Professor
Vinod.
Sudheer was saying? I think, I mean, that's an excellent approach. As long as students are also prepared and trained uh, to use participatory techniques to involve community members, both in problem identification as well as identifying the solutions.
Yes,
I think it will be a very productive exercise to do something like that. Two things I just want to mention, which has been done quite successfully in many Latin American countries and in India, places like Kerala. One is local area planning. Ideas for development of the local areas coming from below, from the grassroots. And I think our students can be excellent ambassadors between government policy makers and implementers at the district level and at the village level to try and understand what the needs of the people are, what kind of interventions do people need in public health, in women's education, whatever the areas are. So some kind of local area planning so that government can focus its resources more effectively on priority areas that are emerging from the village. Second idea that's been implemented quite successfully in Latin America is participatory budgeting. If the village gets 100 rupees, if the panchayat gets, how would they like to spend that money? Yeah, in what areas would they like to spend that money? What are their priorities? How would they like to divide this 100 rupees, right? I'm sure there are central priorities of policymakers, but if they can build a bridge between central priorities and local priorities and create a participatory budgeting model, your plans and policies will have a much better uptake at the village level, and there will be a greater acceptance of that. And our students can play a role in promoting that kind of participatory budgeting. I mean, these are just two ideas that have occurred to me as we are speaking. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Both of your ideas are really good. for implementation along with the community service project. Madam Sundaravalli, now in your initial remarks, you have mentioned about the social evils. Now, these social evils as a part of community development, now how they could be eradicated, or maybe eradication is a very big word, but how these social evils could be tackled by the higher educational institutions?
The institutions as such, they cannot tackle them, but definitely if there is some motivation from the student side, if the participation is from the students, definitely they can go into the field. They can definitely bring about some kind of awareness. They can conduct awareness programs in the villages. They can meet them, they can talk to them, they can educate them. And the many of them, they really, that's what I said. So, for example, child labor. So, sometimes they are taken forcibly they were pushed into the child labor. So, they don't even, the parents maybe, they may not like it also. Sending their child for to work in the factories or whatever, in whatever place they are going for work. So, if these people, whatever we are asking our students to go and reach the community, so they can go and tell them that they have something here to fight for their own rights. They have a law which can help them to fight for their rights. So that's how they can. They can bring some kind of awareness and then educate the community of their own rights, which they don't even know.
Yes, ma'am. So the higher education should be able to motivate, should be able to
Yes.
what is called as educate them about the
Educate.
rights,
Yes.
and then
Yes.
what are the social evils and how they could be
Yes.
tackled with and all. It all
Yes.
be done by the higher education's involvement through motivation as well as through education, so as to empower the local communities. So, thank you very much for all my panelists, starting with Professor Rajesh Tandon, Professor Vinod Pavarala, Professor Sundaravalli, the Vice-Chancellor of Vikrama Simhapuri University, and Professor B. Sudheer Prem Kumar, the Secretary of State Council of Higher Education. Now, today's topic, let me just sum up the entire discussion what we had for this 1 hour. We have started with the problem statement that how to get this community engagement, or how there should be a connect between the community and the higher educational institutions. And the panelists are of the same opinion that the students who go to the community should be with an open mind, and there should be a mutual learning. That is, the community should learn from the students should learn from the community. So, as a mutual learning process, if this particular thing happens, a mutual learning, a win-win learning happens, maybe definitely there will be more of development of the community. And also the state government's initiative of village secretariats, ward secretariats, village sachivalayas, and all these particular secretariat volunteers, and also the secretariat personnel working at village level or at a booth level, maybe will be able to be useful for accommodating the students and also exposing the students to the stark realities of the communities. And also there should be a bottom up approach, like what Professor Vinod Pavarala is putting in, like local area planning. So, with this community involvement or the community engagement or the community connect of the higher educational institutions, there will be a bottom up approach, there will be local area planning, which may lead to the prosperity of the community. I wish and pray that the higher educational institutions will definitely rise up to the occasion of making themselves available, making their students available for the community engagement. So, I thank each of my panelists for being with us, for taking their time out and being with us all, and also for sharing their valuable insights with all the viewers. So, and I also thank all the viewers who are viewing this particular program. So, thank you one and all.
Thank you, sir.